As we go down here, we've got the oil pressure gauge here, and it also gives fuel pressure. There's a switch that can give one or the other. Over here is oil temperature and water temperature. Depending on what direction one of those switches are put over here, these two gauges serve two particular purposes. The largest one of all, of course, is the rev counter. Just as you in your road cars have to address the speedometer to stay within the limits of the law, the limits of the law for this engine is the speed of the engine. It would go up to about 11,000 revs, for example. Then we have two other gauges. This one over here gives out the number of laps left on fuel alone. In other words, out of an 80-lap race with 20 laps to go, if this gauge only read 18 laps, Alan Jones would have to back off the throttle to keep his fuel consumption down to give him the full race distance. Over here there's another readout. This is for the exhaust temperature. And this engine is a 6-cylinder engine split into two. The left-hand exhaust temperature and the right-hand exhaust temperature. There's a switch to be able to give both of those, and that is there. The left temperature and the right temperature. If these temperatures go up too high, an engine could blow. When that happens, the turbo itself would blow, and you'd see a lot of white smoke coming from behind this car. There's two idiot lights, as they call them, instead of gauges. The oil pressure, if it goes right down, this light here, an orange light, would come on. The fuel pressure, if that was failing through a pump or low fuel, then that light would come also. There's a radio switch. This is so the driver can switch his radio on and then press this button to speak to his crew, now a vital part of Grand Prix racing. You've also got a light switch up here which switches on the rear light in the case of rain so that cars coming from behind can see that strong, high and intensity light. These two here, these two things are to adjust the pressure in the turbo because there are two turbos in this car. If the left-hand turbo is going a little bit low, and he would see this in this gauge, he would switch a switch to adjust, by doing so, the left-hand turbo. The right-hand turbo is adjusted here so that both of them are synchronized, same way as a jet engine. There's a few other points in here that the driver has to address. The roll stiffness. If the car has got too soft a suspension roll in the front, the driver can stiffen that up by turning it to the right or soften the car off by turning to the left. The brake balance, the ratio from the front brakes to the rear brakes can be changed also because as the fuel load goes down, the weight distribution changes and he can adjust the brake balance by doing this. Then, of course, there's the gear shift itself, a 6-speed forward gear shift that he would use all the way around this course. To get into reverse gear, he would have to pull this out so that he doesn't inadvertently engage a reverse gear while going forward. It is tight in this compartment. Alan Jones, in fact, will have to work hard here on Sunday. He could lose up to 3 kilos in weight, all because of the physical effort and all that he has to do in his office.
Jackie Stewart at the office he knew and graced so well. And behind us we can hear the drivers bunding on, I guess you might say, as they arrive at their office again for the 1-hour final qualifying session. Begins in just a few minutes' time. The engines that they're gunning are rather different, though, to the ones that they'll use in the big race tomorrow. Jackie Stewart reports once more.
I don't believe in bad luck. I think it's due to poor preparation. That could never be claimed of this team in the relationship to qualifying. It's excellent preparation, masterminded by two men that have allowed Ayrton Senna to have 8 pole positions this year alone. Those two men, Peter Warr and Gerard Descartes, one a team manager, the other an engineer. And this is the equipment that allows Ayrton Senna to get those pole positions. You see these two gearboxes there? They look identical. Wrong. The one on the left, that's a race gearbox. That'll do all 80 laps. The one on the right is only capable of doing 4 fast laps. 2 engines behind me. Look identical. There's parts missing from this one, but they look identical. Wrong. The one on the left is the race engine. It's going to do the full 80 laps. The one on the right is a 4-lap special. It produces about secret of qualifying is in this here. The two turbos. The one on the left is set up to do the whole distance at race boost. This little baby here is set up for those magic 4 laps. It's going to make that Renault engine produce that 1200 horsepower, and frankly, it's going to burn out after only 4 laps. So turbo technology is really what it's all about.
And just listen to that noise from a very noisy Lotus garage. Jackie Stewart reporting again. We'll be back in a moment for this vital final qualifying session for tomorrow's Australian Formula One Grand Prix.
My name is Michele Alboreto. Stay watching the Adelaide Grand Prix.
It's a vital final qualifying session down there in pit lane, where they come out as though they're catapulted from a giant Shanghai. Ken Sparks and Vern Schuppan.
Thank you very much, Mike. Well, the adrenaline is really pumping down here on pit row, and of course we now go to the vital timing. Vern, what will the drivers be looking for?
Well, of course, they're looking for the fastest time they possibly can. As each car crosses the start-finish line, it breaks an electronic beam, which sends a signal back to the computer in the timing tower. And also, each individual pit, each driver has his own monitor to watch. So basically, they're just going out to go as hard as they can and be as near to the front of the grid as they can for tomorrow.
Of course, Mansell was first out. He's keen, isn't he?
Yeah, well, of course, he's the one that's got the most on the line, so he's got a lot to do.
Right, back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Ken. Well, as you watch Nigel Mansell, who is holding pole position at the moment from yesterday's session, circling the track and first out, this is the most important 60-minute final qualification session of the 1986 Grand Prix season, because 3 men, Nigel Mansell, Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet, are in contention for this year's World Championship, and a front row's position on the starting grid for tomorrow's last round of the championship here in Adelaide is vital for all.
Time. It becomes a very tactical battle then. Timing is very important because they must get a clear run. If they're on a fast lap and they come on a slower car, they've ruined the tyres already and they don't get a second chance. So there is Mansell. He's warming up his C's. He'll be able to go pretty quickly on those. He'll want to establish a good time. He'll try and improve his yesterday's time on these C tyres, which, as Murray says, will last him as long as he wants, really. And then when he's done that and done a few laps, he'll go in and he will wait in the pits and he will try and time it when the track isn't too busy. You see him sliding about quite a lot. The tyres aren't yet hot. They'll take a while to come in. Straight, they build up. Here they build up to some 200 miles an hour. You see Mansell, he was weaving about. That's to try and get a little. Then on his 3rd lap, he'll start really going for a time.
Nigel Mansell's fastest time yesterday, which gave him provisional pole position on the starting grid, was 1 minute and 19.255 seconds. But significantly, Alain Prost in the non-qualifying session this morning went round fastest of all time at Adelaide, 1 minute 19.121 seconds, which is some 4 seconds inside Keke Rosberg's 1985 lap record and faster than Ayrton Senna's pole position time last year. Well, you now watch Gerhard Berger, the Austrian, in the tremendously powerful 1350 horsepower in qualifying trim BMW-powered Benetton. That is the man who won the Mexican Grand Prix. Now, let's go round the lap with him. He goes from here, the start and finish point, into the S's in 2nd gear. Then he goes round what I call Gumtree Bend for obvious reasons, down to Wakefield Turn, 2nd gear at about 110 k's. Now into East Terrace Bend, 2nd gear still, 110 k's, and Berger really looks as though he's pressing on. He, unlike all the other drivers I've mentioned, is using Pirelli tyres and may well be going for a famous pub of that name. Now down towards Brewery Bend. He's doing about 150 kilometres an hour. Swings round, well, he's speeding up, but he is not on a qualification lap at the present moment. He was 2 seconds faster on his last lap than he had been yesterday, and it's actually put him up into 5th position on the grid as you look at the cool, calm and methodical Lotus Renault on his Goodyear tyres. The Lotus pit crew getting him all ready. He's got one of the very latest Renault qualification engines behind him, which produce well over 1,200 horsepower. Now Berger's going for it. Watch him. The target time for pole position at the present moment is that of Nigel Mansell, 1 minute 19.255 seconds.
Berger is definitely on a quick one now. He's already improved his time dramatically, making himself up into 5th place with a 1:20.5. And qualifying form, the BMW engine he's got behind him is probably the most powerful. See a little bit of fluid just spilling out of the breather there. And that was just a little bit slower than his first lap this afternoon. We saw Ayrton Senna just now sitting in the pits. He would be waiting for the initial rush of traffic to die away. It's so important in this qualifying to get a clear lap, and the trick is to try and get out there when most of the other people have done their run and come in again.
Down in the pit lane, the Goodyear and the Pirelli tyre technicians, there incidentally is Alan Jones in the cap and the jacket, are testing the temperature of the tyres as they come in and the drivers stop. They stick a probe right across 3 points of the compound of the front and rear tyres, measure the temperatures. That there is Stefan Johansson, the Swedish driver for Ferrari, who is about to drive for his last time for Ferrari in 1986 on Sunday, because he has been, in the opinion of many people, wrongfully dismissed by Ferrari to make room for Gerhard Berger. There's Ingegneri Tomeni just walking out of the picture. That's the man who's responsible for setting up Johansson's car.